We've been on kind of a roll lately with the technology. Probably shouldn't mention it, superstitiously said. So, I'm Robert Beatty. I'm here with my pal, Jim Dalton. This is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community. It's more than a broadcast, though, isn't it? It's a Zoom meeting where we get two-way conversation. That's pretty impressive. It is a broadcast to those of you on Facebook and YouTube. Please know that you can join us on Zoom if you'd like. If you go to portlandinsight.org or robertbeatty.com, you can find the link to the Zoom meeting. So it's morning here in Portland. The sun is 3 fingers above the house across from me. It's getting pretty far north. Quite different in here than it was in the middle of the winter. So these are teachings that have come down to us for 2,600 years from the Buddha. They're not something I made up. My task is to do my best to embody them and to share this incredible model of consciousness that we inherit from our forebears. And I guess I'd like to acknowledge and honor my teacher, Ruth Dennison, who passed away 6 years ago, who was my teacher and ultimately very dear friend over 42 years. Yeah. I see some faces and names here that are new to me, and I hope if you're new to this practice or new to this group in particular, that it really can be helpful to you. One thing that we have failed to mention is that one of the features of the Teachers Council at PIMC is if you would like to talk to one of our teachers, we have a half-hour Dharma consult for which there's no fee. And all you need to do is email Avi, A-V-I, at portlandinsight.org and ask for that. And he will help make that connection for you. And I'm a firm believer and practitioner of the importance of having a teacher. That the neurotic mind, the personality mind, of course subverts whatever teachings we hear to suit its own predilections. So it's very helpful to have someone to talk Dharma with. So I shared a Mary Oliver poem with you yesterday, The Journey. And this morning when I went in seeking poetry, I got stuck in Mary Oliver, which is not a bad place to be. I think one could be there for a long time. So here's her beautiful poem called The Summer's Day. We're not quite at summer, but it's sure beautiful. All right, you ready? You got your poetry receptive hat on, your heart open. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand. Who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know what a prayer is. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And taking a little liberty with the last line, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious day today? Now. I plan to remind myself, and I invite you to participate along with, if you like. What's the one thing that can, I'll put it differently, the refuges are one thing that make a big difference in my day. I take refuge in the Buddha and being awake. I take refuge in the Dharma and the way things actually are. I take refuge in the Sangha, in the community of practice, the lineage that has brought these precious teachings down over 2,600 years. Maybe I'll get it together. I'll try to remember some morning soon. When was it? It was at least 10 years ago, more than that. I took a pilgrimage I led a pilgrimage to Thailand. 16 people went, and it was 18 days, powerful. One of the places we visited is just west of Bangkok. And it's a beautiful building with no walls. And it's probably, underneath it is probably the size of half a football field. And there are white granite slabs about 3 feet wide and 7 feet high. And on them in inch-high script, sandblasted, is the entirety of the Pali Canon, which is many volumes of books. And they did this, they carved it into granite to be sure it would survive. If all the books disappeared, as books can do, these monoliths would be there. I'll dig up that picture. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. May that little song become an earworm, a heartworm all day, to fill this heart with remembering what to do. Be awake. Be present. Be present when it's pleasant. Be present when it's unpleasant. Be present when it's boring. Be present when it's interesting. Be present when things are going my way and when they're not going my way. Be present when the car starts and when the car doesn't start. So, friends, let us find our way to sitting, to being here, present. To come home to the reality of in-breathing and out-breathing. Remembering to remember is a simple thing. And the moments of being awake and not in the trance are obvious. So we practice this mysterious capacity of being present. We start with the beginning of the breath, or we remember the beginning of the breath. We abide with the rising to fullness. We notice the decline and then the passing away. We're also curious about thoughts, mood, energy state. The arising and disappearing of the 5 hindrances. What's happening now? This moment is one of a kind. It never existed before, and it will never exist again. How intimately can awareness embrace the sensations of breathing in and out? How curious can this awareness be about the arising of thoughts, the arising of memories, plans, criticism of self or others? How fully can awareness inhabit this body? It might be useful to consider why you're meditating right now. What's your intention? It could be just to have some peace and quiet. It could be with the intention of a tranquil mind, a concentrated mind. It could be because there's a lot of tumult and pain in your mind and life right now, and you want some relief. It could be out of deep curiosity. What a strange thing to have a human mind. What a strange thing that thoughts think themselves and think whatever they want to. And the mind might get very quiet. Thoughts, when they do emerge, might be like a shout in a quiet barn. Or the hindrances could be in full bloom, and there could be anxiety or restlessness and agitation, or sloth and torpor, dull sleepiness, or intense desire, wanting something, or disliking something. Curiosity could be a powerful motivator too. What's going on? How shall I embrace this mind now and in the rest of the day? How shall I embrace my one wild and precious life? There is a fascinating process, an oscillation perhaps. There is mindfulness and wakefulness and presence. And then one becomes lost in the dream. Stories of an imagined past, stories of an imagined future, waves of anxiety or other emotions, waves of elation, and then there's the noticing, the awakening, that which knows, oh, right, sitting here, breathing, thinking. On many occasions, the Dalai Lama has shared with the world that his religion is kindness. I was present at a gathering of 300 or so Western Buddhist teachers, and His Holiness joined us. 3 or 4 times in a couple of days, he said, don't try to convert people to Buddhism. Be kind. Teach them kindness. Teach them to be a kind Jew or Buddhist or Muslim or Christian. Kindness. How to bring kindness into this moment. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I find myself right now. This includes opening to the self-hatred, to the fear, to the loneliness, to the arrogance, to the certainty, the uncertainty. When I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, it is my deep aspiration to hold myself in sweet compassion. If we dare to stop, not just physical motion, but inner distraction, we will discover there's a lot of discomfort. Being born entails pleasure and pain, gain and loss, fame, disrepute, success and failure, health, sickness. To wake up means we will embrace it all. When I'm hurting, no matter how, I aspire to hold myself in sweet, gentle compassion. And if we intend to practice kindness, we will have the opportunity with our loved ones and friends, people we encounter on the street, people we see as we drive our cars. We will have the opportunity to experience people who are suffering mightily, who are sick or the victims of all kinds of inequity. To awaken, we make room for it all. One traditional way that meditators practice kindness is in the sharing of merit. So we've sat here for a few minutes. Perhaps we've gathered up some spiritual momentum, some psychological strength. May all beings share in the merits of our practice, which we can make very practical, which is that when I get off my cushion today, I intend to do so with the intention of kindness. To remember, how can I be kind today? How can I share the beautiful energy of this moment with my pet, with my loved one, with my client, with my friend? And please now becoming really deeply aware of the body as it sits here, the buttocks as they press into the chair. One great mass of life, the human body. And allowing awareness, inviting awareness, somehow mysteriously becoming aware of the eyes, of the cheeks, of the forehead. You may have done this, you have done this many times if you've been with me here on these broadcasts. Maybe hundreds of times. This is a skill we can develop. As we emerge from our meditation, we do so mindfully. Be aware of the eyes and then the intention in the mind to open the eyes. And notice then that there's something mysterious that happens, miraculous even, seeing. And the seeing could be clear or not clear. It could be just a different quality of light or dark. Or it could be inhabited by people. There could be images that you may recognize as someone you know well, or maybe someone you don't know at all. And then we have the practice of kindness. The word metta is usually translated as loving kindness, and the word loving kindness was created by the women of the Pali Text Society in London in 1890-something, 95, 99, when they were first translating the Buddhist scriptures. They felt very uncomfortable with the word love, so they created loving kindness, loving friendliness, a wish for well-being. It really is beyond the words, isn't it? But we all know what it is. And so we can be very receptive and see who's here. I have no doubt that there are some of us here whose lives are in great turmoil. Or maybe there's someone here today who's going in for a heavy-duty medical procedure, or whose loved one is in the hospital right now. Betsy, the wife of my dear Dharma buddy, Don McEachern up in Canada, just came home yesterday from the hospital after 2.5 weeks. She went off on a bike jaunt. She bicycled over on the ferry and was in Campbell River, and she got back to Quadra and then had a heart attack. It was hard to get things stabilized, 2.5 weeks. But she's home now. That must be so good for them. So if we dare to open our hearts to the possibility, how can we, as Rena Sirkar, my teacher in San Francisco, used to say, if we think about this for just even a moment, about the reality of our lives, how can we be anything but loving? I mean, how can we possibly? So I have a few announcements. I put something in the chat. Oh, I should mention about the chat too. I forgot today. I can't track the chat during our conversations. So if there's something you really want me to know, please send it to me via email, robert@robertbeatty.com. And Jim will watch the chat if something comes up that I need to know right away. There's several notions here. One is Donna for PIMC. You can click that link, I think. You could copy it and paste it anyway, and it would take you to PIMC's website. And you can make a contribution to support this broadcast and the incredible work, the mission of PIMC. There's a fellow named Rob Orman interviewed me 2 or 3 months ago now and did a really good job editing. And if you haven't heard that, I highly recommend it. And it's also a good thing to give friends if you want to turn them on to meditation. Candle Summers teaches Sundays, the first and third Sundays of the month. There's a link there for that. That's a fine thing to do on a Sunday night. And then Brightonbush, I am starting at 11 today, really. We're doing a dress rehearsal or a tech rehearsal at 11 from 7 o'clock this evening till early afternoon on Sunday. There's a fundraiser for Brightonbush Hot Springs, and you can come for all or some of it. And I'm going to share my screen. I think I'm getting it together here. Yeah, there's the shared screen. Probably the best thing to do would just be to go to brightonbush.com. And who are the people? I forgot. I'm going to be the MC/officiant, and there will be workshops by Raphael Kushner, Sarah Joy Marsh, Ruth Williamson, and Irene Kendall. And there will be music on Sunday morning by Shantala, and I should look it up. There's a musical event on Saturday night as well. And once again, back to Candle, there's a Women's Restorative Rejuvenation Circle for Friday starting May 21st. You can find that on the website. And then there's the from our racial justice coordination folks, a monthly metta, a monthly loving kindness for racial justice. That's Wednesday the 19th, and it's honoring Women First Transition and Referral Center here in Portland. So that's an opportunity to learn about different organizations, different persons of color, and other minority communities, and then participate in being of assistance. And there's NVC, Nonviolent Communication, Jim's Qigong, and Gregory's class, and Doug's class. So there's a lot happening. You can stay busy every day of the week with Dharma. You're probably already busy every day of the week. So, with that, I am going to fall quieter and invite you. Is there something you would like to share? Oh, it's Krishna Das. Thank you. Is that right? They got Krishna Das? Cool. It's evolving. How wonderful. I think that's what she said. I got to stay out of the chat. I get a little bit of it and get pulled in. So, have you something you would like to share, a question you would like to ask, an observation of the mysterious unfolding of the Dharma? Oh, I'm not sure I have sound. Jim, could you check the sound for me?
Yes, I can.
I got it.
Me?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yay.
And that long message on the chat that looks like code is actually the link to Brighton Bush. So it somehow got separated from your message to click here, and there's a gap, and then there's code. So they don't look like they go together. No problem.
As we sit in silence, I like to remember the practice of seeing systematically. I'll go down through the pictures, through the life, through pictures of you. And with each person pausing and saying, may you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you live with ease and grace. It's so comforting to do something like that.
Morning, Sangha.
Hello, Cody.
Hi. I had a question regarding Ruth's teacher?
U-Ba Khin.
Right. So I was reading somewhere about either him or his teacher, and
Lady Sayadaw.
right. So something about headaches
Mm.
and like controlling that through meditation.
Mm.
Is that accurate, or do you know much about that?
It's part of the mythology of that lineage that U-Ba Khin was a very powerful human being. He actually, at one point, he was in charge of two major departments, what would you call them, cabinet posts in the then Burmese government. It's a little hard to think of Myanmar right now without some sadness. Catastrophic thing happening there. But the story goes that he had these terrible headaches, and and I forget how it happened, but he traveled to meet Lady Sayadaw, who was a powerhouse himself. He influenced many people to go very deep in their practice, and many of the great teachers studied with him before they became teachers themselves. And U-Ba Khin went, and the story goes that he came in and that Lady Sayadaw said, "I've been waiting for you," on their first meeting. And U-Ba Khin had very bad, terrible headaches. And through his practice, they disappeared. That's the story. And just to finish another thought about about U-Ba Khin. He required, you can see this, it would never happen now, but he required of the people, it was finance and some other department in the government, he required that people come in and spend an hour in silent meditation before they started their workday. Burma used to be a very Buddhist practice kind of place. When I was there many, many years ago in 1979, I was there for 6 days. I was in robes, and one day I got a tour, and in the Tatanayekta Meditation Center in Rangoon, the Mahasi Sayadaw's place, one thing that I witnessed was about 35 or 40 young women, all in these very silly little pink outfits, little pink, sort of like nun outfits, but pink. And they kind of went by like a cloud, sort of. And the Upandita, who was giving us the tour, a very famous teacher, he said, "Oh, they're from the graduating class in finance or something from the university, and they decided as a class that they would come and do 1 month of intensive meditation to celebrate their graduation." Now that's a different perspective, isn't it? But do you have a personal reason to ask about the headaches?
My reason was based on controlling the body through meditation. Yeah.
Well, I have a parallel story to U-Ba Khin's, actually, with that. When I had terrible migraines, really quite crippling migraines, and they would come on in a flash, and I would have to I had to get to darkness, and I'd pass out, and then a few hours later I would feel better. But they were awful. They were debilitating. And when I began to meditate, I would have those with some frequency. I also had terrible allergies. And over the course of the next 5 to 7 years, with the meditation and with the therapy that I did, the migraines went away completely. As did my allergies diminished terribly, tremendously. And the way I understand it in retrospect was that I had so much repressed anger and sadness, and I was so unconscious that I was pressurized all the time. And in my instance, letting that stress off made a big difference to my health. And as they have found through the mindfulness-based stress reduction programs, people often have significant symptoms diminish. It's not a cure-all. It doesn't. But for the dimensions of illness and ill-at-easeness that come from our unconscious stress, meditation can have a really big impact. But it's not so much through control. I think that would be the wrong word. It would be through relinquishment, through relaxation, through the willingness to experience the symptoms. And then, what do they call it? I used to do biofeedback, and they called it normalization of bodily function. That if we can just stop holding on to it tight, it knows how to heal itself. That making sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I was thinking maybe control of focus, but...
Well, that makes sense. To have some concentration is really important, and to have the capacity to open and see what's happening and just soften into life. That's the other. It's an interesting dialectic between control and relinquishment. Where are you in Alberta?
In Calgary.
Calgary. How are things there COVID-wise?
Not good, frankly.
Yeah. Thanks.
Morning, Sangha. It's Denise.
Hello, Denise.
So I think the last time I spoke, I talked about equanimity and how that has been something that I guess I want. But interestingly, that same day, a coworker and friend called me and was talking through some turmoil that they had, and just looking for some advice and ear and whatever. We talked for a while, and afterwards she was like, I don't know what you're doing, but it seems like you've got it together. And she kind of referenced to like that, we had kind of shared a very similar issue, and I'm like, it's not an issue for me anymore. And she's like, was impressed by that, how I was able to handle and deal with it. And so I was just really grateful that I have all of you, and that maybe a little bit of equanimity from time to time.
One thing to remember is that, particularly if one practices regularly, is that we get to be observing our emotions and our lives through a microscope. And so we become very sensitized to the vagaries of human life, and the way moods come and go, and the way this is this is poor advertising for meditation, what I'm about to say, but if one meditates with some frequency, the pain will be more poignant, because you'll be able to pay attention to it. You'll see, one gets in contact with the dukkha of all kinds, the disappointments and the physical pain, and so that pain will become brighter, sharper, more clear, as will the pleasure, as will the delight, as will all of life. And in order to do that, we must develop equanimity, and we do. It just emerges that we get so we can bear things that previously we'd freak out over. And that is infectious to the people around us. I know way back at the very beginning of my practice, I was totally freaked out, crazy person. And I was in India, and I kept meeting young people. And I remember 2 or 3 encounters. There was one meeting with 2 young women in American Express, where we had our mail go. This was so far beyond times of email and texting and all that stuff. But anyway, I had this meeting, and these 2 young women were so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and right there. And I asked them, as I had done several other people, what have you been doing? And they said, oh, we just did this 10-day meditation course in Bodh Gaya. And it was sufficient. What happened between us, and a few other times that this happened, that I started getting curious about something that I thought was really stupid. I mean, going and sitting on your ass in a meditation center when you have all of India to explore. But I was desperate and depressed and freaked out, but there was something infectious. There was something. There was some transmission from then that got me to change my life, and so we have that effect on the people around us. It's very interesting. Not through some intention. But maybe Denise, you just listen more than you ever did, more fully, more something. There's some way you're able to be more empathic. Oh, there's actually research. I forget now. It's about 10 years old. That in fact, regular meditation increases empathy. Now, some of us have known that for 2,600 years. I mean, not each person, but now we know from Western science that it's true. The part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex that lights up when one is empathic, in fact, lights up more when one is meditating with some frequency and depth. Thanks, Denise.
Robert?
I hear Tim, the dulcet tones of Tim.
Speaking to what Cody was talking about,
Yeah.
what I think Cody was referring to, my own experience, I started having chronic lower back problems, like sometimes quite crippling, like 50 years ago. And I've had it all my life, and arthritis and various forms of joint pain and dysfunction. But I somehow got the idea, and it's been so long ago, I don't know how I got the idea. I didn't get it from Buddhism, because I wasn't familiar at the time. But to look at what was going on, my back would go out, and then I would be debilitated. The first time it went out, I just dropped to the ground and crawled around on my hands and knees for 3 or 4 days, and lost my job, and it was bad business, and couldn't stand up, and then afterwards, something similar has happened many times, but somehow I got to look at it and found that one of the main components of it was muscle contraction that would get locked and then just stay there and just these muscles were seemingly terrified that this would happen again. Mm-hmm. And so they would just lock into this oh shit situation and just lock there. And way I could get to him, I could, do drugs and heat and stuff like that. But the way that would really, that I found to address that, was to turn towards it and to examine it, just what you guys, just what we talked about, to turn towards it instead of pushing away from it, instead of pushing it away, to go, okay, let's see.
Yeah.
How bad can this be? let's lean into it, turn towards it, and examine it. And then once I'd gotten to that, kind of anthropomorphism in a way or something, but these poor little muscles were down there just scared shitless. And to try to talk them out of being scared shitless as if they were frightened children or something. Mm-hmm. Oh, sweet, it's going to be okay, sweetie, you're going to be all right. That kind of stuff. And that worked enough to make it possible. I had this condition and I did manual labor for 20, 25 years, hauled garbage, picking shovels, stuff like that, with this messed up back. And that was the only way I knew how to make a living. And that was the only way I could do it. And it would happen every morning. It would happen on a daily basis sometimes. And that was, it sounds so much like Dharma.
It is
just stepping into it.
Yeah.
And I had kind of a cowboy approach about it. Sometimes it was, come on, motherfuckers, that's all you got, as opposed to a more Buddhist approach. But it came up to the same thing. It was like, okay, this ain't going to kill me. The worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to fall on the ground and crawl around. And that's the worst thing that's going to happen. It's going to hurt like hell, but it won't hurt like hell all the time. Mm-hmm. So kind of on what you were saying, it's not a cure. I didn't heal it. I didn't heal my back that way. It never got healed. Still that way. But it's got so ameliorated that I could function, and the levels of pain compared to what it used to be, nothing. Hope that's worth it.
Thank you, Tim. I mean, I should draw, or have the opportunity to draw your attention, if you're dealing with pain, physical pain in particular, if you go to portlandinsight.org and look for teachings and go to meditations and guided meditations, you will find there a pain release meditation. And I forget what the one right after that is. It's two sides of a tape, actually. Some excitement happening in my backyard. I don't know what it is. That's the busiest link on the website. For years, I was connected with two of the hospital systems here in Portland. And each year I would talk to 300 or so doctors in training and their teachers. And I would always give them, I would do a little talk on meditation and pain, and I would give them a little piece of paper with that link on it, and they would then give it to their patients. And it's it's the classic strategy. I learned it from Stephen Levine, and he got it from the Buddha, which is when there's pain, there's two things you can do to be relieved from pain, other than, distraction and medication, which work. Distraction particularly works for minor pain, but for serious or chronic pain, distraction doesn't work. So the strategy is, there's pain, where? Turn toward it. Soften. Go closer, closer, closer. Dive into it. Notice the thoughts. Notice the feelings. Notice the avoidance. Noticing the emotions. Go closer, go closer, go closer, until the pain becomes sensation. And the suffering is seen to be the fighting against it. And so you go closer and closer, and then at some point you stop that, and then you go bigger, 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 until the pain becomes this minuscule little thing way down there in the human body, and the whole unconsciousness is spacious, such that the suffering goes away through perspective, I guess. And then the practices go in and go out. And I've taught this to people who were dying of bone cancer. And in other ways of dying, I've taught it to many people. And this one fellow that a whole long story I won't relate, but after the first time I came to him, I was working in hospice, and they reduced his pain medication so that he would be conscious enough to talk to me. And I walked in the room, and he was struggling with this pain. He had cancer in his back, and it was exploding. So he was in pain. And I did a guided meditation with him, breathing, and then this moving into the pain, and he relaxed more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And after half an hour or so, when we ended, he said to me, "Young man, this is the only thing anyone has shown me that works." Yeah. You know, I'll tell you another little piece of that story. That was on a Friday. And his prognosis was 3 months or so. And he came to me in a dream on Saturday night and thanked me. And when I went into work on Monday morning, he had died on Saturday night. And I think he found the door. I think he was able to just open and let go. Which I don't believe we're in charge of the moment when we die in general, if ever. But that was I haven't had many experiences like that, but it was potent. So pain. Physical pain, emotional pain, the pain of the heart. When we're in emotional pain, where does the pain exist in the body? Emotions all have a body base. They don't just happen somewhere, they happen bioelectronically. And so we can see, so I'm sad, where do I feel this sadness? How close can I get to it? Is it personal? What's the story? What are the stories I'm telling myself that support this sadness? Well, friends, it's 8:15. I have much to do this morning to prepare for Brighton Bush. Oh, hello there, Joe. You just unmuted.
I did, Robert. Good morning, Sangha. I wanted to tell you what a great connection it was with Mary Oliver this morning. Because yesterday, just doing chores, going out to feed the horses, things like that, I was struck by how beautiful the area is that I am, how fortunate and lucky I am to be there. And I stopped moving and stopped, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, and just soaked it all in and realized that that moment is all day, every day, if I just wake up to it. And that poem says it so well. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to keep that to myself, but I thought after the discussions, I would share it with everyone. And I hope everyone has at least a moment like that today. And I'm looking forward to more of the same. And thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Beautiful.
You're welcome.
So is anybody sitting with something that you really want or need to say before we go? So let's make our way out chanting Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. May all beings receive all blessings. We'll do it 3 times, and then sadhu. And sadhu is kind of like the Buddhist, the Theravadan Buddhist, amen. It's like, may it be thus, or so it is. So please unmute yourself if you wish, and we'll have some fun with it. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Please have a wonderful, mindful day. And what's that last line? What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Bye-bye.
Friday.
See you Monday.
Bye,
I will not.
thank you.
Frank later, my friend, colleague from Germany, will be teaching Sunday morning because I'll be on the Brighton Bush patrol.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good fortune, Robert, this weekend.
What was that?
I said good fortune this weekend to you.
Good fortune. Yes. May we make a lot of money for Brighton Bush, speaking of fortune.
That's right. That's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
After those fires, something healing for it.
Yep. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Goodbye, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. Looks like it worked again today.